thing on.
How fast does this thing go?
Does this thing have four-wheel drive?
Does it have four-wheel drive?
Nice.
We're going to start tonight on 4,600 RPM launch. I talked to the guy that I bought this motor from, and he said that his converter and his car weighed about the same as Jackie's. It may have been a little lighter. I think it was 2,800 pounds. And he ran a 180 glide, and he ran about the same rear gear, maybe a little less. His converter would go 5,800 on motor and 6,400 or something like that on 400 shot of nitrous. So, needless to say, we're way off. The motor just doesn't make as much nuts down low because of the small block deal as what it does on 2 kits of nitrous or whatever. So, I mean, I know you guys are probably watching this going, you built it for nitrous, turn the nitrous on. And I'd be saying the same thing. But we need the management. The only reason we're running nitrous is for the power management. You know, we have plenty of turbo shit here. We could put a turbo motor in the car, but we wanted the power management. We wanted to be able to go, we could leave on motor. We could take timing out of motor, leave on motor with no timing, leave on half of one kit, 2 kits, whatever. And right now we don't have that. Right now we have a car that honestly won't run without nitrous, and we don't want that. So we're probably going to make a converter change. But until then, we're going to try some stuff. So 4,600 RPM on the launch. I mean, just for reference, that's about what I run on the street in my big tire twin turbo car. We're getting into some higher RPM launch stuff. If the car responds like we think it should, that's going to tell us right away that a looser converter is going to make a world of difference. And we already believe that, but, you know, it's more fun to go try it. So here it comes, 4,600 RPM launch, no timing retard. It's going to be get it. Internal dump open on the trans brake. Then when she lets go of the trans brake, the external dump is going to turn on to 100, and then it's going to ramp out to 0 by 1.5 seconds. So basically, when she lets go of the trans brake and the internal dump closes, the external dump is going to open wide open, and then as she goes out, it's going to pulse closed by 1.5 seconds. So it should be right about the time that the motor takes off. So hopefully we get some RPM rise off the trans brake and this thing rolls out. No timing retard, just 4,600 on the brake. Now we got, I mean, I know I keep saying it, but now we're getting somewhere. I mean, that deal was, it's closer. You know, this is something that probably should have been what our first pass looked like, but you know, that's how this goes. You know, you can make a dozen passes to get something like a new combo figured out, or you can go out there and take it to a race and blow it up the first time. But I promise you, if we'd have turned the nitrous on, if we turn the nitrous on right now, it'd probably stretch the rods out of the block because the converter's just so, the RPM would just lay there. Now, if we could leave on 2 kits in a big tire car, we might be able to make this converter work, but it'd still be tough with a small block. But we're on the board, you know, like we have a draggy now that resembles a drag race car. It resembles a street race car. We have a 60-foot that's faster than 1.5 or whatever, you know, like we're almost in racing territory here. So we're just now getting to 80 PSI of charge pressure on the launch. I think on that last pass we were 84 PSI. So even with the internal dump open, we're still only at 84 PSI on the launch. So we're still not quite there. If the converter wasn't so tight, we could just set the launch pressure, or we could just set the launch RPM at 5,500 or 5,800, and it would probably be fast, but it won't get to there. You know, it won't even get to the 2-step if we set it at 5,500. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the big dump on at 50%, what we wanted to do before. We're going to do that now. So we're going to turn the big dump on at 50% on the 2-step. So we're going to have internal dump on, big dump on at pulsing at 50% while she's on the 2-step. When she lets go of the trans brake, we're going to let that big dump go open 100, and then but instead of waiting until 1.5 seconds to close it, we're going to close it more like 1.25 on this pass. So, and we're raising launch RPM to 5,000. I think it'll get to 5,000. It may struggle, but I think it'll get there. The problem is if it doesn't get there, it's not a big deal, but it would be a big deal for if we had launch retard, if we had, if we had a bunch of stuff, traction control, nitrous controller, whatever. A lot of times if it doesn't hit the 2-step, it doesn't know to start all those timers. So we want to try and make sure it hits the 2-step RPM. So that's why we're going to 5,000 instead of 5,500 or whatever. So next pass, 5,000 RPM, and both dumps on, wide open. This is small tire street racing right here. That's all I ever hear about is transmission dumps, and all I ever do is talk crap about them. So it's time for me to, you guys can all make me eat crow for saying that. But if we get the right converter in the car, we'll probably never use those damn dumps again. Getting fast enough that we're seeing it, the chassis do what
It's just all over the place.
it went left twice in a row. Whenever that data pulls up, look at the launch RPM. It was like it's 5,200 or 5,000 or some shit. Like it was just
Because I watched
like it spun the tire there, so it hooked on initially because it ain't got no fucking fluid pressure in the converter, but it hooked, squatted, front end comes up, but then it like spins, goes left, then it hooks, then it spins, goes left, like.
But then I did, it's just going like this the whole
Yeah, because as soon as the power comes in, it starts spinning and going left again. But at least it doesn't have that sound where it goes, and then takes off. Like it sounds like a race car. That's better.
I try to wait until it's flashing green, because even it sounded like it was all the way up But it was flashing yellow, and then it went like a little bit more
Yeah,
up, and it was flashing green.
It doesn't have enough power to push through that converter, so it has to wait on the dump to open for the fluid to go down, you know what I mean? So it like went up, and I was like, oh shit, it's not gonna hit the chip, nothing's gonna work. Like, it's not gonna shift, it's not gonna do timing, it's just done. And it goes, and it goes, and I was like, yeah, it sounds like a turbo car. Man, other than it kind of acting goofy, like you could hear it as it went up to the two-step, like it didn't quite want to get there, and Jackie kind of had to force it through that, but you can almost hear when that big dump opens and then it goes on up and hits the deal. It almost sounds like a turbo car because it's kind of, you know. So when she let go of the brake, it flashed, you know, I mean, it flashed 5,600, and it almost didn't drop. I mean, it kind of dropped, but it almost didn't. But then by the time 1 second hit, it let loose of it and it was going, and the G meter was up. Shocks look beautiful now. You know, we're really getting somewhere. It did wad the tire up a little on the hit, and see, that's the problem with using these dumps. So the dumps definitely let the RPM go up, but the problem is it takes away from the drive shaft. So when you open these dumps and you take the pressure out of the converter, you're basically, you know, creating a leak inside the converter. So what'll happen is when you let go of the brake, instead of it, you know, having wheel speed, it just smashes the tire, and then of course it has to unwad, and that's when it spins off. So you can see the car smash the tire, and then it spins the tire, and then it takes off. But that's just part of it. If we have the right converter in the car, we'll be able to make wheel speed, and that won't be a problem. But just the fact that the draggy's getting faster every time, you know, the data's looking better every time. Nothing's fell off the car. Nothing's puked oil out of it, or not. You know, it's not. This deal is, it's making passes, and we're getting better every time. Now, I think we're at the point now where we can't raise the launch RPM anymore and know that it's going to hit it. I'd be afraid if the weather changes that it may not hit the two-step. So now I think it's time that we could open the dump even further on the external dump on the trans brake and see if we could get it to go any more, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, we were at 31 psi of charge pressure when she let go of the brake. We don't like to race like that. That'll kill your 60 foot. So what we need to do now is we need to get the right converter in the car and turn those dumps back off, and then take it to a racetrack somewhere, because, you know, it's ready to go. We're in a weird situation. I've never had a car that could run on motor. I've never had a car that made this kind of horsepower at higher RPM. So, you know, usually you tune a big block car, it makes horsepower everywhere. You know, you tune a turbo car, you do what you want with horsepower after 5,000, but until there, it's a mutt. So in this situation, it's a lot like a turbo car, except, you know, it doesn't have the 50 pounds of boost or whatever I can put to it, and it only has a 28-inch tire. So I feel like the car will be more competitive at what she wants to do, which is street race and back of the track race. I think it'll be more competitive with the correct converter, and, you know, if it'll run what I think it can run on motor, then she'll only have to spray, you know, 300 or 400 instead of 600 or 700 to be able to back split with the turbo guys. And that's our plan. So another thing that we noticed is that on these last couple of passes, as the car is starting to go faster, we are noticing a trend. Just like you notice trends in the data logger, we're noticing a trend in the car. We're noticing, as the driver, she's noticing that she's having to correct back to the right. And as the guy standing on the starting line holding the phone, I'm noticing that it's definitely moving that way. Now, it could be moving that way just, you know, when it smashes the tire and then it could come up, spin, and go that way, and then she has to drive it back, and then it could spin again and go that way. Or it could be that the chassis is reacting to the horsepower and it's driving left, which is a good thing. That's what you want it to do. You know, if it goes straight when it's a turd, it should go left when it's got some power. So I also think that while we're waiting on a converter and doing some other things, we need to get the car back on the rack and rescale it, readjust some things. Because once you make a few hits on these cars, the heims move, the bars settle in, the threads move. So it's time we go through, rescale, realign the car, and just double check everything and make sure it's good. You know, nut and bolt the whole suspension and reset it up for a little more horsepower. A little more horsey boys, horsepower. We'll see what we can do. All right. Bye.